Another heavy cut back on this. You can see it's taken over the sidewalk. We're going to cut it back to this line. We're going to cut it off the house. And we're going to cut it down to the bottom half of that brick. And now, earlier in the season, we cut it off of the steps and cut it back to this post, and it already fully grew back over. So we're going to take it down to that side of the post, and then we're going to come over here and clean up this crepe myrtle and start a process of fixing that. But here it is, and let's get to work. Hello, and welcome back for just a little bit more hedge trimming. Actually, we have a lot more hedge trimming coming up. I was sitting down with my newer SD cards, and they're 512 gigabytes, and I have 2 of them full. And I was scrolling through the footage, and I was scrolling through the footage, and I was scrolling, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to break these things up into like 2 or 3 parts, unless I can just figure it out, which maybe I can't. But anyway, let's look at the screen, check it out. We're doing another hard cutback, and the last video we did one on some lower pedalum, and these are Boxwoods. And these are actual Boxwoods, not Japanese hollies. So there's a lot to think about with this, because Boxwoods are very, very weird about, they're really susceptible to things, right? So before I did this job, went home the night before, basically cleaned off the hedge trimmer blades and stuff. Just take a wire brush, some sanitizer, like a bleach, like just a little bit of a bleach spray and some water. Take a wire brush, really scrub it clean. I didn't let it soak or anything. Maybe I should have, to get like really in between. But I don't like the thought of my gears and stuff sitting in water. So I just kind of spray it pretty well, scrub it out with the wire brush, because your boxwoods are really bad about boxwood blight, fungus, just a lot of different things that you can pick up from other plants. The good thing we have going on this particular set of boxwoods is the fact that they're very healthy. Cutting this back this far, I'm not worried at all. There is obviously, like I said in the prior video, a risk. There's always a risk that you could lose a shrub when you do this. But again, every 2 or 3 years, you pretty much kind of have to do a hard cutback like this. Well, not like this, but every 2 or 3 years you want to do a hard cutback. That way you don't have to do this. You don't have to take this much off. The thing about it is, and I said this in the last video, a hedge trimming job typically is just kind of like a haircut. You know, think about when you get your hair trimmed, you just go in and they take a little bit off, shape it up, and it looks good, right? That's typically what we do with hedges. But now imagine that your head, the actual skull, right, or whatever, the thing the hair grows on, right, the scalp. Now imagine you go in for a haircut one day and you've got a bunch of weird, like, extra growth on the scalp, right, and there's just lumps everywhere. It's going to be hard to make a really nice, even haircut. And the same thing happens with hedges. The scalp of the hedge, right, the base, the plant itself, the heart of the plant, expands and grows at the same time as that outer shell that we're normally trimming and shaping up. And so it kind of pushes that outer shell slowly and slowly out over years, and you end up with a situation like this where your boxwood is eating the steps. And for a little bit of context on this part I'm trimming right now in the video, I've done this already this year, and that is how much growth this bush put back on within the course of a year, because I came here to do their basic trim in April. Okay, this video you're watching is from October. So within a matter of 6 months, these bushes put on that much extra growth to be eating the steps again. I've already cut this back once this year like this. Now, is it going to recover this much again? I don't think so, because we're doing it to the entire bush. And that's a lot of stress on these plants. So it's going to slow that growth a little bit, and it's going to take it a little bit longer to pick that pace back up, right, and fill back in those holes. So back to what I was saying before. You want to do this, you want to do a hard cut back once every 3 to 5 years, depending on the shrub, and that maintenance cutback, if you will not be this much. This one was pretty well overdue for that, and that's why we have to take off so much. But I'm really not worried about this thing coming back, because these shrubs are so well established that it really shouldn't be any kind of an issue. And again, we've done it before. We've already done it once this year to a portion of the shrub. So I just, yeah, these things are crazy growers. But one thing I want you to check out is, and I don't know, I can't remember if I left it in this or not, but all these debris, instead of raking them and trying to, like, you know, make your rake get all these materials on the tarp, just use a pitchfork. Take a pitchfork right through the pile. You can get almost the entire pile that way, and then just rake the little fine bits, you know. So the way that I look at this is the pile right here to the right now is a large material pile that you can pitchfork. The stuff that's left after you pitchfork it is like a medium material pile. I rake that, and then everything that's left after that, the little leaves and little bits and pieces, here we go, I'm pitchforking. All the stuff that's left after I rake the medium stuff, I'll blow up the small material that's left behind after all that. So, you know, you get sort of 3 different levels of material that you can just kind of, you know, it's really easy to work with all this stuff with a pitchfork compared to a rake. The rake just seems like it takes way too long compared to that really quick swipe. Look at how much I took off of there. Alright, so here's the rough cut. You can see the one in the background there, how much we've taken off all the way down, and then line it up here with the sidewalk. And yeah, we're gonna clean up all this stuff, but that's the rough cut. Still got some little cleanups to do, and then there's what it looked like before. All right, so yeah, we're taking a lot of material off. These 2 shrubs fill not my entire tray. Like, I could put more stuff on there, but they pretty much fill up the entire 7x12 trailer. And yeah, man, it's a lot of stuff. There's not really much left to say about that, but there is part of this that I forgot to film, which is this crepe myrtle to the right. The client had ended up topping it a couple years back, and you can see it off the right here. It's just really bushy, and it has a lot of suckers. And if you want to know why that happens, I have a whole video on this called Why We Don't Top Crepe Myrtles. Suggest you go watch that, because it's just really, it's a really direct proof of why you don't top crepe myrtles. You know, just because they can stand it doesn't mean that you should do it. You know, I can live without one arm, but I'd rather not. So go watch that video if you're curious about why this crepe myrtle would get bushy like that. But I did try to start a corrective pruning process, which it's so funny because there's like 3 or 4 like stronger twigs left that we're going to allow to form into the branches. And I wish I had gotten that on camera, but I guess it just slipped my mind. but maybe we'll get back to it later. But it looks so goofy when it's just 3 little twigs like that, because it's just weird. Like you don't see that normally. I don't think I ever see anyone doing corrective pruning on a crepe myrtle. But we had 2 options, which was cut that crepe myrtle down to the dirt or down to the stump and let it grow some new shoots and then pick from there, or start from the place it's at. I opted to start from the place it was at just because there were some really nice branches that, as big as this stump is on this crepe myrtle, or the trunk is on this crepe myrtle, those really good shoots that it did have are going to be really solid in like 2 years time. So what we're going to do is every time I come back to do maintenance on these boxwoods, I'm going to fertilize that crepe myrtle a little bit, clear off all the suckers, and then the homeowner is also going to clear out the suckers. This is all that I do for this customer. I don't mow for them or do anything else. I come out 2 or 3 times a year to shape up these boxwoods, and this year they just exploded because we had one of the rainiest years, or probably the rainiest year that I think I've ever been a part of since I started this business, and these things just went crazy, and they were eating the porch, so we decided to take that sucker down. But yeah, just as a side note, while we watch the rest of this video, I don't know if how far in you watch these things or whatever, but you might notice the music in the background. I make all of that. So on top of the editing, filming these videos, doing the work, I also make these musical tracks. And I have like 50 of them right now. And I try to make them to where they're kind of quiet enough, but I know some of them get a little repetitive. One thing that I want to hear from people is like, is the music too loud? Is it too repetitive? Is it too this, that, or the other? Because it's not meant to be like a focal point, it's meant to just kind of be liven up the video a little bit of a background track, a little bit of a something nice to just sit in the background instead of just a silent video, and I try to balance it where you can still hear the engine noises, right? And you get the music, you get the engine noises, you get the commentary. It's kind of I want it to be like a whole package deal, right? And that's part of the thing with these videos that I talk about. I've talked about it before. There's a lot of work that goes into the way that I'm doing these, right? So please, if you're getting this far and you're liking stuff, leave a comment, let me know, subscribe, because it's going to make a big difference, and it's going to let me know kind of what's working and what's not. But yeah, thank you. All cleaned up. Cut. Alright, so you can see where I've blown off everything and made a really nice clean finish. And if you go back a few seconds, you'll see that crepe myrtle in the background. And on to the next job we go. So this one's a customer that I've had for the last couple years. These particular plants that I'm trimming right now in the video, I would say we're doing like a normal cut back on, because again, normally we would just trim those little shoots and maintain the shape. This is what you need to do every 3 to 5 years, is really take just a little bit more than just the shoots. You're gonna have a few little bare spots and a few little like just kind of awkward looking points, but it all fills in come March time, right? Whenever March or April hits in our area, all this stuff starts to bloom back out and flower back out, and it'll be way better for it, you know. But you want to do this kind of stuff typically in the fall, because it greatly reduces the chance of damaging the shrub, losing the shrub, or whatever. And maybe you can tell, maybe you can't, but I'm really taking 8 inches off, maybe 12 off of that, the top of that shrub. Alright, and so here is part of this harder cut back. You're going to run into thicker things than your hedge trimmers can handle. Get the loppers out and cut that stuff down like an extra 4 or 5 inches. Because what will happen is that extra growth will kind of fill in the hole that you make, because it's going to make a little bit of a hole when you do that. But again, it'll all look better for it come springtime. Alright, and you'll see here in a minute how I move my tarps. Typically when I set up, I tuck the tarp as far in, as close to the trunks of these shrubs as I can, and then I just drag it along the bottom. And I try to cut any branches along the way of the path of the tarp so that it doesn't get hung up on that. And I think this is what finally ruined my hedge trimmer, because you can see how shaky that this footage is. I think this was the nail in that GoPro coffin, and you'll see here in a little bit, I think I left it in where the footage gets really glitchy. I can't remember if it was on this one or another one. Like I say, I'm a month out from this job being done, and I can't remember things exactly, so bear with me. But again, looking at this shrub, this is what I would call a very standard cutback. This is, you know, this boxwood was kind of getting a little too tall, and to make it fit its space, we cut a little bit off. And here's the deal. When you cut it off, you have to think about the fact that come springtime, you want room for the green to fill in. And if you have a target height or a target look, cut it just a little bit below that, like 2, 3, 4 inches below your target, because your new growth, you can fill in and make it stay at that target height. So you have to have a little bit of planning and a little bit of foresight when you do cut back shrubs that far. And the same thing is true with these that I'm cutting right now. They're going to get thicker and bushier and send out more shoots. And when a plant goes into recovery mode after a cut like this, they get bushy, man. They go crazy. And so these shrubs I am doing a little bit of a shape up on, but again, these are kind of going back to what I would say is a normal cutback, taking off more than just what's going to shape it up and keep the tight form, but enough that it maintains a height that feels reasonable. Now this shrub that we just changed over to, I'm doing closer to a standard trimming, but you can see I am taking off quite a bit there on this side, and I keep stepping away and looking at it and stepping away and looking at it, because this one in particular, I've kind of been annoyed with the shape of it all year, so I've been waiting to get at this one. Alright, so doing like a sort of medium cut back on these. The barberries actually look fine. I might cut this little bit on the bottom here, but holly shrub's gonna get cut in half. It's in a weird spot. Hydrangeas are all gonna get cut back this year. Barberries look fine. Let's see, hydrangeas going back. Cut these lilies. This guy's just getting a normal trim. We're gonna shave this barberry up, because look at that. That thing is funky and weird. Maybe what I'll do is try to make shape out of some of these, because they don't look great, and I think it's a sunlight issue, because we're back in the woods here. So all right, let's trim it up. Alright, back on the hedge trimmer we go, causing the issues. Check out this beehive. That thing was huge, and it was absolutely covered in bees when I got there. I had to get some spray out and spray it, and then thankfully they're all dead, right? So yeah, these barberries, they're fine. I mean, they're not great, but they're like, I think it's just where they're located at, you know? Either that, or maybe it's something to do with the pool chemicals or something. I genuinely don't know what's wrong. But yeah, normally with hydrangeas, we would not want to do a cut back like this. But on these in particular, they've really been neglected. So what I'm going for on that is to get some new growth out next year and really make those things look how they should look. And yeah, I do this as I go, you know. I make a little pile of stuff, clean up, go on to the next section. I work in like square blocks. It makes it easier for my brain. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Like, it's just, most of this hydrangea was dead. And on occasion, even though you're not, again, every so often you need to do a hard cut back on things. Even though you're like a hydrangea like this, you might not get blooms out of. I'm pretty sure these limelights will bloom next year regardless, though. But certain varieties, if you trim them in the fall like this, they're not going to bloom the following year. It'll take a year or two, because the blooms come on the old growth, and I just cut off the old growth. So, but this particular variety is a limelight. It should come back just fine next year. And for reference, the limelight is the ones that don't turn blue or pink depending on the soil acidity. So if you have one that changes color, don't trim it in the fall if you want blooms next year, unless it looks like this and it needs it. But then know that you're going to be without blooms. So that's for the ones that have color. If it's a limelight and it's just this light white or greenish blooms, it's totally fine to do this, and you should be good to go. Also, oak leaf hydrangeas, I'm pretty sure bloom on the old growth, so don't cut those back. But a true oak leaf hydrangea, they get massive. I had one customer. He had a oak leaf hydrangea that was probably 10 feet wide and something like 15 foot tall. It was coming up on his porch deck that he had built up on his house, like, because it was on a slope, and it was almost devouring his porch. So yeah, that thing, oak leaf hydrangeas are crazy. I definitely prefer a limelight over any hydrangea just because they're easier to establish, they're easier to maintain, they're really forgiving on the pruning. And this is where my camera broke. So, dude, these spiders have been everywhere, man. They're so annoying. And this property in particular had hundreds and hundreds, and I'm going to say it again, hundreds of these, because all out in the forest and stuff. Like, it was really a problem. I could not mow without getting covered in spider webs. And then when we did our summer pruning here, all of the clippings, when we got to the gas station to, take a bathroom break and all that kind of stuff after the job, a dozen of those little baby spiders were crawling all over my truck when I came out of the gas station. So I'm telling you, these things have been such a problem this year. But yeah. Hey, listen, if you don't have a combi system, you have to get one. Because you can see I just trimmed that whole thing from the ground. Very little effort. If I need the extension, I can just throw it on. I don't need a ladder. And this thing, these combi things, these combi systems have made me so much money. If I knew what I know now, right? If you're thinking about getting into lawn care, don't. Just get a combi system and go trim hedges. Trust me. Just go do that. Be the hedge pro. I've seriously, strongly, and I'm still considering dropping lawn care and just marketing hedges and doing a total brand and business change, just because I do love trimming hedges. But if you're doing a bunch of those, it will wear you out. And now this bed, like, it's not going to be the prettiest when we're done here, but really, there's just not much you can do about it. I mean, I could go and pull everything out, but we're not putting back new pine straw, so it would just be a bare flower bed. If you're not putting down new pine straw, it's really hard to get pine straw to be pristine when you're dealing with this much material. And I could have put a tarp out, but really, for the one tree, it's really not that big of a deal. The good thing about pine straw is that all those clippings do blend in when they lose their green. But there we go, man. That's it. That's the day. That's the job. This was October the 15th. And I'm sitting here current day on November 19th recording these voiceovers. Anyway, if you enjoyed it, I really appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for watching, dude.